Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the EUI degree conferring ceremony for the Department of History and Civilization and the Department of Political and Social Science. Before we start, I kindly ask you to make sure your cell phones are switched off. Headsets have been placed at your chairs. While there's no translation, they can improve your hearing. I'm very pleased to give the floor to the EUI President, Professor Renaud de Hus, for his welcome address.
Good afternoon and welcome to everyone. Following what is a consolidated tradition, I will say a few words, in particular to our graduates, whom we have the pleasure of having with us at last, I should say, today. Today is a special day, of course, for you, who will see in a few moments the crowning of years of efforts, patient efforts. Sharing your satisfaction in this moment is also, for us, a great joy. One of the best indicators in a world where indicators are extremely fashionable, one of the best indicators of the quality of an institution of higher education is the quality of its students. And here, I must say, it's a constant source of pride for me when I hear your professors or our many visitors say that one of the greatest assets of this institute is the quality of its students, who are a formidable source of inspiration and contribute greatly to the quality of the research that is done here. I feel the same kind of pride when I look at the career development of your predecessors who are now occupying prominent positions in a wide number of institutions, academic and non. We all know that this place is unique in so many respects. But at the same time, we also found out that an EUI experience may be a challenging one, particularly, needless to say, during an unprecedented pandemic. This notwithstanding, for most people, it is a formidable experience from which they gain a lot. Through the exposure to a wide variety of cultures, of schools of thought, of personalities, but also through the many encounters of all kinds, that one can make here. If you believe in the intrinsic virtue of diversity, then those are precious opportunities. Yet, it is important to recognize that the world of today is perhaps less open to this worldview than say when the EUI was established 50 years ago. Some of the cardinal principles on which this institute was built, the openness to the other, mutual respect, trust in the value of scientific reasoning, to mention but a few, are now openly challenged. To explain this, it is at times said that our world is characterized by a division, not to say a tension, between, on the one hand, the people from somewhere, whose identity is shaped by a sense of place and attachment to a group, and the so-called people from anywhere, whose identity is not tied to place, but rather to achievements or position. Stimulating as this dichotomy may be, I think it fails to capture some of the key elements of the EUI. Of course, we attach great importance to our students' achievements. That's our job. And we have full faith in their ability to reach prominent positions, as I said. But this notwithstanding, people here also develop a strong communal identity. I was thinking of this very recently, actually, watching the inauguration ceremony of the Coppa Pavone. Although this somewhat obscure tribal rite cannot claim a great antiquity, it surely has a strong structural power on our group. And it seems to me that this is not without ties with the local culture. Now, I could take other examples, but I think you see the point which I wish to make. People who have been here are not mere anywheres. They also have here, by which I mean at the EUI, but also in Florence, one more somewhere which has shaped their identity. This, I'm sure you will see later when you will meet again or meet more of your peers, be it at a conference or in some private gathering. And arguably, this integration function is also part of this institute's mission. With this, I conclude. We wish you all the best in your future, which, as I said, we will be following. Let's stay in touch. You belong here. Thank you.
We will now proceed with the awarding of the Doctor Honoris Causa degree to Professor Maxime Berg. I invite Honorary Promoter Professor George Auriello to address the Honorary Doctor Maxime Berg.
Thank you and welcome. Let me say what a pleasure it is to give the laudation for Maxime Berg. Professor Berg is Emerita Professor in History at the University of Warwick in the United Kingdom and the founder of the internationally well-known Warwick Global History and Culture Centre. The 10 minutes available to me are just a drop in the ocean of time that anyone would need to do justice when asked to talk about Professor Berg's truly remarkable career. I refer to time because history is supposed to be the science of time. People indeed believe that we are the master of dates and that we historians savor time a bit like wine. The toast that will follow this ceremony should have happened 728 days ago. As a graduate for 2020, Professor Berg's presence here today is for us all the confirmation that historians are also patient with time. We are persistent. We have been waiting for so long to this day that I cannot even excuse myself, as I normally do, by saying that I didn't have enough time to write this speech. If one looks at Professor Berg's curriculum and impressive list of publications, one can see a scholarly journey over a period of nearly half a century. Few would know, perhaps, that she is a Canadian who, in her early 20s, after completing a degree at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, moved to the southern coast of England to pursue an MA at the University of Sussex. That was 50 years ago, and since Professor Berg has made Britain her home, she has taught and researched at Warwick for 45 years, and while raising a family of 3 daughters, Francis, Gabriel, and Jessie, and now there are also four grandchildren. In the midst of all of these, Maxime Berg has profoundly reshaped the contours of the fields of economic history and global history, and more specifically, what today we think of as the Industrial Revolution. Any scholar, any of you graduating today wanting to contribute new research, dream of reshaping established truisms by proposing new ideas and new concepts. Few scholars have the capacity of doing it over and over in one's career. In the 1980s, Professor Berg encouraged historians to think more closely about political economy, technologies, machines, and small-scale manufacturing in the age of industrialization. She then moved to include gender as a category in economic analysis, stating in uncontroversial terms, and here I quote, "I am an economic historian and a female historian." In the late 1990s, she was asked to engage with consumption. She asked us to engage with consumption and material culture in economic history. In the 2000s, she was pivotal to a global turn in history that shifted the contours of our discipline. Yet, I should say, unfazed by having just spearheaded a turn, in the 2010, she challenged economic historians to return to the archives and to the local and to the personal in introducing us to global microhistory. Each conceptual innovation was grounded in new and exciting research, opening up fields, themes, and new ways of conceiving the past. There are many academics who contribute scholarly fields, but few who can revise foundational concepts and structures and make us challenge our assumptions. I distinctly remember a meeting when, in the 1990s, Professor Berg launched the project that would make her internationally famous. She started by saying a single word, luxury. Did I hear correctly? Luxury? It was not an expression well known by economic historians who had not really discussed luxury for at least, I would say, in living memory. Professor Berg convinced them that the Industrial Revolution was not just about prison-like factories and chimneys spouting smoke. The Industrial Revolution was a new engagement with goods, the things that we all like, the textile, the accessories, watches, household goods, and commodities for a comfortable living. These were the luxuries that people aspire to possess in the 18th century as they do now. Professor Berg's reinterpretation of the process of industrialization shifted the paradigm from supply to demand, and in the process talked not just about commodities, but also about technologies, materialities, advertising, and desire, in a revolution that for the first time concerned women as much as men. We are, of course, grateful to Professor Berg for all of this, and yet this is only half the truth of her achievements. Scholarly qualifications always need to be matched by personal qualities, among which we value most, and the more for its rarity, kindness. Our Oxford home has been for several decades a place of hospitality, of dinner parties, and of dances in the kitchen, to borrow an expression from the early 20th century economic historian Eileen Power, whose own achievements Professor Berg brought to our academic attention. Generation of graduate students and young and old academics have found not just a colleague, but a friend in Maxine. In Oxford, Professor Berg can be seen on a green bike that she has owned since she was a graduate student, zooming from a library to a seminar before hosting a dinner for a dozen people. Professor Berg has the same boundless energy to bear at Warwick, where she can be seen teaching undergraduates, chairing seminars, and starting a new research center all on the same day. And this is before relaxing by going for a stroll and admiring the university's bluebell woods. I mentioned the University of Warwick because it is rare for an academic to have contributed so much to one institution and its reputation. When Professor Berg joined the University of Warwick in 1978, it was a relatively new institution, just a few buildings in the deep English countryside. Today, Warwick is known internationally for being the leading center for early modern history, the place where one goes to study material culture, and the university where global history was invented. Professor Berg's research has been key to all of this, but even more so has been teaching. The field of global history did not emerge from the pages of a top journal, but from the lecture theatres and seminar rooms where an undergraduate course in global history entitled Galleons and Caravan has been taught for nearly 2 decades. And this has been taught by Professor Berg together with colleagues. The ripple effect has been vast. During her 45-year career, Professor Berg has trained over 3,000 history students. This is an estimate, as economic historians would call it, and yet I don't think it is actually very far from truth, and it is actually not very far from the total number of doctorates awarded by this entire institute over the same period. And these students have been trained to think, and sometimes they've also been trained to do better. As Professor Berg would say to them, not as a criticism, but as an act of encouragement. Many have been invited to conferences, involved in projects, and even hosted at our home over Christmas, something, I should say, for which they are eternally grateful. 2 years ago, my speech would have concluded here. So many momentous things have happened to us all since that future historians will shape and analyze. In the sense, we are never out of a job. In the course of repeated lockdowns, Professor Berg once again turned to new themes and new problems. And as she masterfully showed us in a lecture on Wednesday, she is now probing how slavery and industrialization fit on the same history page. Of course, she had already announced this theme in her 2005 book, Luxury and Pleasure, which prompted that, and here I quote, "There are some more disturbing stories that need to be told, of consumerism and the growth of inequality, and the transformation of world trade into slavery." Having retired from Warwick earlier this year, Professor Berg remained as active and as productive as ever, now returning to the global history of Nootka Sound, a place on the very island of Victoria where she was born, and returning to the EUI, where we continue to benefit from her energy, her insights, and of course, her kindness. I present Maxime Berg for admission to the honorary degree of Doctor of the European University Institute.
Thank you so much, Giorgio. Thank you. I'm very grateful for this honor. I'd like to thank the President of the EUI, René Duhus, the Secretary General, Marco Del Panta, and the Director of Academic Services, Matthias Nierkirchen. I also very much thank Giorgio Riello, Chair of the History Department, and the administrators who have been so much help in organizing all this event over more than 2 years now, Anna Desu, Fabrizio Borchi, and Anna Koda. I'm very grateful to some of my colleagues who have come to this ceremony today from the University of Warwick, and to Jan de Vries, who's come, and his wife Jeannie, who've come all the way from Berkeley via Utrecht. And to my family, 2 of my 3 daughters are here today. Well, my first connections with the EUI History Department were as a conference participant, and I did some PhD examining. I came to and presented at a number of EUI summer schools, but it was really only from 2015 when I came as a Fernand Broydel Fellow, and on 2 subsequent visits of 6 to 8 weeks each after that, that I really came to know the department. During these years, it was really exciting times in relation to this relatively new field of global history, and I joined fine PhD teaching seminars in global history, in cultural and intellectual history, in the history of science, and in the history of natural resources and environmental history. These were really exciting learning experiences for me, reading with the researchers and discussing all the new work that was coming out. And then during the pandemic, the EUI was right onto it. Zoom seminars appeared almost immediately, and there was an exciting new one on the history of capitalism, which I was very glad to be able to join and take part in when this was happening. The EUI has had a long tradition in international history and in economic history, and it's very much a department that looks outward to the wider Europe and to the wider world. Well, it was exciting in the early days of starting the Global History and Culture Center at Warwick, and we very soon established research collaborations with the EUI. And most notably, more recently, there's been a collaboration in global microhistory. And then the EUI researchers, during the pandemic, started an initiative on decolonizing global history. And a new research collaboration is developing out of that. I've found my connections with the EUI, I've found wonderful faculty, constantly renewed and reinvigorated, a really great group of intellectually compatible historians and really nice people. I think it has really become a place of new ventures for me. I'm very recently retired from the University of Warwick. I spent 42 and a half years there at this same institution. It's something that few of you graduands will ever experience, staying in the same place for quite so long. But Warwick was never the same place and history never the same field for me. Warwick was new enough and flexible enough to welcome new ventures, and that's what I think that is what has really made it such a great place. And I was always keen to look for the new voyages and the collaborations and friends they would bring. So I will say to you all, voyage out and change your fields, but do it with others. There's so much out there to discover. Now, finally, I want to say, we are now facing huge research challenges, which are so great, especially in the UK. I held an ERC Senior Research Fellowship between 2010 and 14. That was before Brexit. And my postdocs were from Germany and the Netherlands. The EUI History Department now holds 3 of these precious awards, and a 4th historian holds one in the Robert Schuman Center. There is now, so far, no resolution to allow the UK to continue as part of the ERC Horizon Europe programs. So current UK holders of these awards are in the process of relocating their projects and sometimes themselves to other parts of Europe. This will be a terrible thing for the UK, research culture, and also a very terrible thing for connections with the rest of Europe. So I just want to say, in this time of war and division in parts of Europe, our research connections are so important to keep us together. Our place as historians is more necessary than ever now in shaping our ways forward to international understanding. Thank you so much.
This is the degree. Professor Berg. Professor Berg, by the authority vested to me, I admit you to the honorary degree of Doctor of the European University Institute. Thank you. And here's your degree.
The contribution of the EUI choir to the conferring ceremony has become a fine tradition. I'm thus very pleased to welcome the EUI choir and its director, Valerio Del Piccolo, to our event. The pieces they have chosen are the following: La Biche from 6 Chansons from Paul Hindemith, O du stille Zeit from César Bresken, Verger from 6 Chansons, also from Paul Hindemith, and Abschied vom Walde from Felix Mendelssohn. Thank you very much for this excellent performance. We will now proceed with the award of the doctoral degrees. We will start with the degrees in the History and Civilization. May I please ask the HEC graduates to stand up.
By the authority vested in me, I admit you to the degree of Doctor of History and Civilization. Congratulations.
I will now individually, one by one, call the graduates of HEC to come forward. Maria Andamopoulou.
Congratulations.
Anka Diana Axinia.
Congratulations.
Johan Achim Balaban. Jonas Brendebach. Elias Buchetmann. Martin Draper. Jonathan Fink Jensen. Ignacio García de Paso. Calliope Geronimaki. Tomas Ivesic. Suzanne Lassalle. Alba Martin Luque. Ismay Milford. Elena Maria Rita Rizzi. Isabel Anna Cameron Rowe. Jan Rybak. Henning Schuler. Gerrit Jan Rutte. Samuel Alexei Sorokin. Mikko Samuli Toivanen. Igor Vranic. We will now proceed with the award of doctoral degrees in SPS. May I please ask the SPS graduates to stand up.
By the authority vested in me, I admit you to the degree of Doctor of Political and Social Sciences. Congratulations.
I will now individually, one by one, call the graduates of SPS to come forward. Jonata Ancinetti. Francesco Bagnardi. Adrian del Rio Rodriguez. Teresa Gessler. Tore Refslund Hamming. Amanda Haraldsson. Jaakko Jonas Hillu. Sophia Hunger. Harpal Hungen. Gennady Jakovlev. Johannes Jüde. Nodira Kolmatova. Metin Kocha. Lendert Jan Gerrit Krol. Christina Henriette Lacour. Louis Gordon Miller. Catherine Margaret Mary Morris. Fred Paxton. Ilse Plavko. Samuel David Schmid. Timo Seidel. Jasper Paul Simons. Oskar Schmallebroek. Vegard Torstedt. Vicente Diniz Valentin. Christian Emmanuel Vermorken. Shenda Wang. Martin Robert Jan Weinrich. Paula Zulaga Guerrero. We will now proceed with the awarding of the James K. Memorial Prize. Tobias Wiegmann. We will now proceed with the awarding of the James K. Memorial Prize and the Linz Rocken Prize. I kindly invite the Dean of Graduate Studies, Professor Deirdre Curtin, to address the prize winners.
Thank you very much, and it's my pleasure to address you today as the Dean of Graduate Studies. So as the Dean of all doctoral researchers, let me say something very briefly to all the graduates here today. In a sense, you're quite a mixed-up cohort. You span from basically those who defended their thesis in 2019 right up to those who defended only a few weeks or even days ago. We know the reasons, and the response was so big to have this ceremony. As you know, we actually had to split it in two. No matter, I think it's fair to say that the experiences of those of you who defended in 2019 and those of you who defended in 2020, 21 and 22 have all been quite different, much more than normally would have been the case. And one thing for sure is that it hasn't been easy, and no matter what the struggles were, and they were not all pandemic related, you have emerged victorious, your cherished doctoral diploma now in all your hands and on your record forevermore. But before we get to the well-deserved celebration and the prize giving, let me share a quote from one of you in the first ever exit survey conducting among all those who defended between September 2020 and August 21. So the core of the EUI was idealistically expressed by one of you graduates as follows, and I quote, "The EUI is the place for the community. People after the EUI program are the best ambassadors of the idea of community. At the EUI, the spirit of the community is the most important value. Everything else people are able to organize. This spirit is created by the relation between academic service departments and researchers. Places like Bar Fiasco, Coppa Pavona, but all other activities are absolutely crucial to create these levels of relations." So there were also many other remarks and even suggestions for rewording the wording of the survey, and all of that is all good. But I thought it was important to remind us all today of the spirit of community. But when I was reflecting earlier this week on what the common denominator was and is of the 8 prize winners we celebrate today. There are only 3 now, don't worry. The others are later on in the next ceremony. But I was reminded of the value of courage and how that permeates who we are and aspire to be as scholars. And as the late poet Maya Angelou put it, and I quote, "Courage is the most important of the virtues. because without it, no other virtue can be practiced consistently. So our special prize winners today have displayed courage that has marked them out in their academic choices and paths. And this, for me, is the stellar commonality they share, and I hope we all share. But they have all cultivated courage in their time here at the EUI, and with brilliant results and outreach to wider communities beyond the EUI. So turning now, to not keep you too long, to the James K. Memorial Prize in History and Visuality. It's awarded every 2 years for the best EUI history thesis, I assume, that combines the study of historical and visual sources. So I'd start, Elena Rizzi, probably. So you won. I have something to say to you. Okay. I have a little speech. Okay, I wanted to say something actually about Elena. So you explored the visual and cultural politics of interwar French republicanism from a previously untouched and highly revealing angle. This was of the policies and strategies of art acquisition, display, and commissioning in 4 state-supported sites in France. And your innovative approach was to combine compelling visual analysis with meticulous attention to the social history of specific sites. In the words of the jury, you gave a rounded history of national visual tradition, which is as much about global politics as it is about an aesthetic milieu. An Italian, you studied France in Florence, and you now move to the prestigious post as an SNF-funded postdoctoral researcher in Geneva. So accept again all our warmest congratulations, and I think you probably have to. Okay, I move now to the second prize winner of the James K. Memorial Prize, and that is to Bohdan Shumlovic, and apologies for butchering that, who won it for his thesis defended in 2020. The date is not unimportant. Even before the outbreak of the current war, you showed intellectual courage, creativity, unusual methods resulting in important political reimaginings. You, or he, analyzed late Soviet television, showing how a sense of Ukrainian nationalism was produced and emerged in the 1970s and 1980s. He went back to Liev after the EUI, where he has researched and engaged as a public intellectual ever since. For that very reason, he cannot be with us today. And your colleague and fellow researcher, I'm not quite sure where he is, the Belarusian, and again I'm going to butcher this, Vladimir Valochin, is accepting it on his behalf in these unimaginable circumstances. Can I just say that you, if there was a prize for thesis, I know you haven't defended titles, but I did note that your thesis title is Misbehaving Under Socialism. I thought that was certainly a contender for one of the best thesis prizes, I thought, but you know, who am I? But now you are here to accept the prize on behalf of Bohdan. So thank you very much for coming here, and we will now. So, from visual history and politics to what looks like a more pure, less visual politics and data empirics, we move to SPS, and the Linz Rockin Prize in Political Sociology. So, I'm not going to call you first because then you'll get the claps. So, Vincente Diniz Valentim, your courage was to tackle the difficult but important topic of social and political norms and to rigorously explore it empirically. Your dual achievement has been to craft what the jury called cutting-edge design techniques that others can build on. And you too were highly innovative in the sources, which one might think were only data-based, but in fact also included, surprisingly I thought, visual symbols including flags. The visual metaphor continues with your fame on Portuguese television. Perhaps this is not widely known here in Florence, but the Dean has her spies. You leave the EUI not to go back to Portugal, but to take up a prize-winning postdoctoral research fellowship in politics at Nuffield College at Oxford. In fact, you are one of 2 EUI graduates to receive this annual prize out of a total of 3. The other is an Italian economist who will accept her prize in the later ceremony and join you in Oxford in the autumn. Please accept our warmest congratulations. Oh, there you are. Yeah. You go, probably.
I would now kindly invite Dr. Ilse Plavko from SPS to the pulpit for the salute.
Mr. President, Autorita, dear professors, doctors, dear family and friends. Thank you for this opportunity to congratulate all of us on receiving our doctoral diplomas. Being conferred this doctoral diploma indicates both the end and the beginning of 2 long periods of our lives. First, it symbolizes the end of a very long educational trajectory, starting from primary school in our respective countries, ending here with a doctoral degree from the highly renowned European University Institute. Second, it symbolizes the beginning of our postdoctoral careers. In my talk today, I'll briefly discuss both of these periods. With regards to our educational trajectories, we all have very different educational backgrounds. We come from many different countries, different educational systems, different language of instruction, with different educational choices made along the way. But there are several factors that unite us. First, for whatever reason, we have all aspired and worked hard to reach the highest possible educational attainment level. Second, this highest level was obtained here at the European University Institute, home to some of the best doctoral programs in the world and guided by top scholars and professors in their respective fields of expertise. Pursuing a doctorate at this university is first of all a unique experience, we all know that. But beyond this uniqueness, there are several important common traits that I would like to underline, if you allow. First, pursuing a PhD is generally considered a lonely journey, but we all know this is not the case at the doctoral programs here at the EUI. From the seminar rooms, to the library, to the cafeteria, to the bus stop, to the Arno River, to the football and volleyball pitch, there's a constant traffic of highly talented, intelligent people ready to engage in debates, exchange views, scrutinize, and give advice. The Institute offers a variety of social venues, we all know that. Bar fiasco, cultural, sports activities, organized in the 4B framework. They are a great asset of this university. If I can give one advice as a EUI alumni, I would certainly underline the importance of the 4B activities, and I sincerely hope that there will be a generous room for it. A second likely trait of the journeys of the people wearing a black gown here in this room today is the tendency of asking big questions and a full immersion in the world of theories. Theories are a big part of the academic exchanges in these villas of this institute. Despite the sunshine that often blesses these hills, many of us are often in the clouds, thinking about some causal mechanisms, how to empirically test them, how they can be traced. Third, graduating in the early 2020s also inevitably means that a large amount of the journey was hampered by lockdowns, quarantines, other pandemic-related situations. For many people in the room, including me, this also meant that PhD defense was in a lonely room in front of a screen. Nonetheless, the beauty of today, beginning here in this church with these distinguished professors, colleagues, friends, and even my mom in the room from Latvia, all the way from Latvia, makes up for a lot of lost time. Fourth, obtaining a doctoral degree in 2022 also means graduating in times of war in Europe. In expressing my solidarity to the people of Ukraine and everyone affected by war crimes, I want to highlight once again the importance of EUI community. This institute has been home to many initiatives that not only raise awareness and express solidarity, but also practically support those affected by forced migration and wars, such as the Refugee Initiative, embracing a group of asylum seekers in our community, and the more recent Help Ukraine initiative, providing material support and creating job opportunities and positions at the Institute for Ukrainian citizens fleeing the war. Successful completion of a doctoral degree is to some extent based on our own individual merit, on our hard work and talent. However, it needs to be acknowledged that many of us would not be here today without crucial support from many involved parties. This is the moment to acknowledge the institution that awards us today, and to thank those without whom we would not be here today. Let us thank the national authorities and funders who continue believing in the European community and who continue supporting the EUI and the PhD students financially. Let us thank the EUI staff who enabled the smooth functioning of the doctoral programs. Let us thank the professors who believed in us that very first interview when we arrived here only with an idea, who supervised us, who intellectually stimulated and advised us up until the thesis defense and beyond. Let us thank all the devoted librarians at the EUI Library and the historical archives of the European Union for enabling access to abundant resources, so indispensable for the successful completion of our research. Last but not least, let us thank our families, our parents and caregivers who supported us throughout our educational trajectories, either financially or by encouragement, by teaching us to pursue our dreams, to aspire for higher. Some of us have followed the footsteps of our social origins, while many others have aspired and reached higher educational horizons compared to what the life circumstances of their parents or their caregivers had permitted them to achieve. Some of our beloved ones are here with us today, and we thank the Institute for making this happen. Others follow us from far away on Zoom, and we feel their presence strongly. And some have left us along the way. May they rest in peace. And they would be very happy for us on this day, possibly are. The end of our unique trajectories of formal education marks the beginning of our postdoctoral careers as EUI alumni. We are now in a position to contribute to academia, to policy making, to the production and dissemination of knowledge in general. In this next life stage, I think it is important not to forget the value of education. As explicated by former President of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, and I quote, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." Let us also not take education for granted. Millions of children and university students around the world are denied access to education as we speak, either due to lack of financial resources or discrimination or wars. This institute has surely given us much more than education to take along in our future paths as EUI alumni. Many of us during our stay here have gained friends for life, life partners, even children, and the EUI actually has supported us financially and with daycare for these matters. But importantly for our careers, the EUI has also given us an enormously rich pool of future colleagues, an internationally wide network. This network has reached a stage whereby it is close to impossible to attend an international conference without meeting another EUI alumnus or alumni, or to apply to a research position in a place without knowing anyone from this community, and Vicente's example of Oxford shows this. Let us cherish this wide, unique international network, whether it is in the academia, European Union institutions, think tanks, or any other job that the EUI doctoral degree that we receive today leads us to. We will always remember and be reminded of where we are coming from. Thank you very much. Congratulations to all. Auguri a tutti.
The ceremony has come to an end. According to our tradition, the graduates, together with the president, will be the first to leave the church and have photos taken on the stairs to the church entrance. I therefore ask the audience to remain seated until the photographs have been taken. Please leave your headsets on your seats, and please leave your seats one row at a time to avoid crowding and keep a safety distance. You're kindly invited to the reception that will take place on the church square.